right, in this video, what I want to talk about is why I think Nigeria import prohibition list is a welcome development. It's interesting what is happening. US has complained and criticized the Nigeria import prohibition list. But US is bringing it up in 2025. But this has been since 2015 or 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So it wasn't a recent development, but US has criticized it. And I'm suspecting something. I'm suspecting that US want to use this as a means of negotiation. You will notice something among all the African countries that have low tariff. Ghana, Morocco, Kenya, I think maybe Ethiopia, if I'm not mistaken, they all have 10%. Other ones have 30% and 20-something percent. Nigeria have 14%. And then the handle of the US trade representative, I see them criticizing the fact that Nigerian prohibited item is affecting them. It's affecting them, taking advantage of that market in Nigeria. But they have just increased the duty, right? And I have a feeling the idea is to allow, which is what is happening now. I mean, if you follow the news, there is a 90-day pause on the implementation. And the news added that over 90 countries have reached out to the US to have a deal, to have conversation. China is among, and Trump believes China is just proud. Is among the countries that refused and decided to retaliate, even though the European Union or US have now accepted it, but they also have approved retaliation. I don't know if they have implemented it yet. But where I'm going is, why is it that US is bringing up this issue now? I mean, for Nigeria, even though the 25 item has been prohibited, not just recently. So I will show you my observation. I strongly believe US is definitely up to something that, and the plan, in my opinion, is to hoodwink Nigeria and get Nigeria to agree to what US wants, which is to come down and negotiate and bring that 40% to 10%, my opinion anyway, to be able to also ensure that those prohibited items does not affect them. Because they're trying to I suspect they're trying to get more market in Nigeria. Because if you look at the data, which I will show you shortly, and this is why I'm doing this, why Nigeria import prohibition list the welcome development. China is more affected, European Union is more affected than US. But US is the one criticizing something that has been on for almost 10 years, since 2016 or thereabout. So it's not a new development, but it's been brought to fore by this criticism of the US. Now, let's start. Let's talk about import prohibition in general. Why do countries prohibit importation? And why is Nigeria prohibiting importation? Why do countries prohibit importation? And why is Nigeria prohibiting importation? An import prohibition ban is a government-imposed restriction that completely forbids the importation of specific goods or import into a country. This differs from tariff or quota, which restrict the amount. So what US is doing right now is tariff and quota. Nigeria is total ban. That means US say we can bring it in, but you pay more. Your buyer will pay more. And that will make your product more expensive. But in this case, it's total ban. So it differs from tariff and quota, which restrict the amount of import, but don't eliminate them entirely. Nations implement import prohibition for a variety of reasons, often stemming from economic, health, safety, and political concerns. Example import prohibition will include prohibition of weapons and explosives, prohibition of counterfeit or pirated goods, prohibition of used clothing in some African countries like Rwanda, prohibition of expired and unregistered pharmaceuticals, and prohibition of items infringing intellectual property rights. So what are the motivations for prohibition for many countries. Certain import might pose security risk. That's protecting national security. Dual use goods, for example, banning or prevent the import of equipment that could be used in terrorism, in war, or espionage. It can be used as a tool to protect domestic industry, to shield local manufacturers from cheaper foreign competition, to help grow infant industry until they are competitive globally, like banning used cars to support local and auto assembly industry. Also, preserve environment and public health. Ban harmful and hazardous products, toxic chemicals, substandard goods, e-waste, and banning of genetically modified products. In some cases, to enforce religious standards. Some nations prohibit products that contradict cultural, religious, or moral values, like alcohol, like pornographic materials, like pork products in some Islamic countries. It can also be used to correct imbalances in trade and conserve foreign exchange earnings. Limiting import can help protect weak currency, reduce trade deficit, especially in emerging economy. This helps to manage balance of payment, which is one of the things Trump is trying to do, to balance the trade between themselves and other countries around the world, especially in emerging economy. Balance of payment, political and economic consideration. A country may prohibit import from a specific country to enforce sanctions, to show political disapproval, and to support international embargo, like banning of goods from countries under United Nations sanctions. It can be used to protect agricultural and natural resources. Prevention, the ban can be used to prevent the introduction of plant and animal disease or pests into the country, like banning fresh produce that can introduce foreign parasites or fungi. Now, import prohibition generally prevents significant economic consequences. Import prohibition can have significant economic consequences, rather, including higher prices for consumers and reduced trade. They can also lead to smuggling, black market activities. International trade organizations like World Trade Organization have rules that govern the use of import prohibition, aiming to prevent them from being used unjustifiably as trade barriers. In essence, import prohibition are powerful tools that government use to regulate, but they must be carefully considered due to their potential economic and social impact. So the question is, what are the products that are currently prohibited for import into Nigeria that the US government is criticizing? What are those products? Number one is live or dead bird or frozen poultry food, poultry products generally, like chicken, pork and beef, which is one of the things that US have issue with. Pork and beef are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Bird egg, excluding hatching egg, are prohibited into Nigeria. Refined vegetable oil and fat, excluding castor, olive oil, crude vegetable, are prohibited into Nigeria. Cane and beet sugar, chemically pure sucrose in solid form containing added flavoring or coloring matter, are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Cocoa butter, cocoa powder, cocoa cake, cocoa products prohibited into Nigeria. I think except chocolate is not mentioned, but the cocoa preparations, not the finished cocoa. Spaghetti, noodles, pasta are prohibited for import into Nigeria. And the reason is because these are produced locally. And for a number of reasons, they are prohibited because of the impact on local manufacturing. Tomatoes are prohibited into Nigeria. Tomato paste and concentrate, tomato oil and pieces, fruit juice in retail pack. This is one of the things US criticizing, are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Tomato ketchup and tomato sauces are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Water, Nigeria import water. You will see the data shortly. Nigeria import water. Water like mineral water, aerated water, water with added sugar or seasoning, flavored water, ice snow, excluding energy drinks and power oil like power oil, are prohibited into Nigeria. Bagged cement, Nigeria still imports cement, but bagged cement are prohibited into Nigeria. That means if you are importing cement, you are importing cement that is that is bulk. That means you have to now repackage in Nigeria. Medicaments, drugs like paracetamol, cotrimazole syrup, paracetamol tablet and syrup, cotrimazole and syrup, metronidazole tablet and syrup, chloroquine tablet and syrup, hematinic formulations, ferrous sulfate, ferroglucate tablet, folic acid, vitamin B complex, multivitamins, capsules and syrup, aspirin tablet, magnesium tricyclicate, piperazine tablet, levamisole tablet, ointments, penicillin, Pantel and pamoate tablet, and intravenous fluid like normal saline are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Waste pharmaceuticals, mineral and chemical fertilizers, soap detergent, mosquito repellent coil, retreaded used pneumatic tires, corrugated paper and paperboard, and carton boxes, carpet and rug of all types are prohibited for import into Nigeria. All type of footwear, shoes, all type of bags, all type of suitcases are prohibited for import into Nigeria, excluding the ones that are brought in, knocked down, and assembled, excluding safety shoes used in oil and gas industry, sport wells, and completely knocked down. If the shoes are assembled in Nigeria, they're fine. Hollow glass bottles for capacity exceeding 150 ml are prohibited into import into Nigeria because Nigeria produce them. Used compressors, used air conditioners, used fridges. You see them in Yaba. You see them in Oyibo. They are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Used motor vehicles that are more than 12 years old from their manufacture are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Ballpoint pen and refill are prohibited for into Nigeria. Now, all these are prohibited for import into Nigeria. Now, let's look at the potential. The potential. By potential, I mean the import of this product into Nigeria. And then you will notice something, which is what I noticed. I noticed the people to be complaining about the prohibition: Europeans, Asians, EU countries, China. But US is complaining. I guess US is trying to enter this market. US is trying to enter. And there are people abroad in US who want to sell this product in Nigeria. But this product are prohibited for import into Nigeria. What is interesting for me about this is that even though these products are prohibited for import into Nigeria, they are being imported, probably in a completely knocked down fashion. But the data I assess show that these products are being imported, but they have been prohibited since 2016. So they're not new prohibition. Look at this. Poultry meat is being imported into Nigeria. 1.4 million import, mainly from United Kingdom, Italy, UAE, Malaysia, Brazil. Pig meat and cow meat have been imported into Nigeria from South Africa, Italy, Spain, Netherlands, France. Egg is being imported into Nigeria from United Kingdom, France, Netherlands, Egypt, Turkey. Vegetable oil imported into Nigeria from India. And look at what we are doing for pig meat and bovine meat, $231,000. For egg, 6.36 million. Now, I'm suspecting that some of this egg might be egg powder, which is why they are probably allowed to come in, not the raw egg. Not the raw egg, because that is prohibited for import into Nigeria. Vegetable oil, $2.63 million. Indian, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, Poland, Egypt are the source of import of this item into Nigeria. Sugar beet and sugar cane, $58.7 thousand. Imported from Algeria and Turkey. Imported into Nigeria. They're not supposed to be imported. Cocoa preparation. Cocoa powder, cocoa butter, cocoa cake, $56.2 million. Mainly from Ghana, Turkey, China, Netherlands. I'm assuming these are smuggled products because they are imported into Nigeria. Pasta. It's not supposed to be imported into Nigeria. We import pasta from Niger, from Italy, from France, particularly Indomie and macaroni and spaghetti. Turkey, China. Import into Nigeria, $4.21 million. Tomato products, Netherlands, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Egypt, $144,000. Import into Nigeria. Fruit juice are still being imported into Nigeria. Fruit juice, not concentrate, fruit juice. $30 million from Netherlands, Spain, Germany, South Africa. Import into Nigeria. Water. Nigeria import $27,000 of water. Netherlands, United Kingdom, these are mineralized water, sweetened water, flavored water. France, United Kingdom, Norway, Turkey, United States, UAE, import into Nigeria. Cement is imported into Nigeria. But I assume they are bulk, $14 million, because bag cement are not allowed. And we're importing from UAE, from Germany, from Mozambique. South Africa is a major source of import of vitamins. China, another major source of import. United States, India, major source of import of this item into Nigeria, $19.1 million. Fertilizer import. China, Canada, Morocco, Egypt. These are supposed to be prohibited for import into Nigeria because Nigeria currently produces this product. Soap. Different kinds of soap are prohibited. But $41.7 million of soap are imported into Nigeria from Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, China, Cote d'Ivoire, Philippines, India. Imported into Nigeria, $41.7 million. Then we have used rubber tires. China, India, Belgium, Chinese, Sri Lanka, Germany, Switzerland, $6.59 million used rubber tires. Corrugated paper, $4.24 million import from China, Chile, United Arab Emirates, New Zealand. They are prohibited, but they are imported into Nigeria. Carpets, different kind of carpet and rug, prohibited for import into Nigeria, but $29.5 million imported from China, Turkey, UAE, imported into Nigeria. Footwears are prohibited for import into Nigeria, but Nigeria import $365 million from China. About 90%, about 7% from China alone. From China alone, Cote d'Ivoire, Italy, Turkey are sort of import. Suitcases, leather bags, $167 million, and about 95% is imported from China alone. Glass bottles, more than 150 mil, are not supposed to be imported, but they're imported into Nigeria. $13.4 million from China, from India, from Germany. Pen are not supposed to be imported into Nigeria, but they imported $27.8 million for importation of pen from China, from India, from South Korea. Now, the picture here is this. These have been banned since 2015, 2016, but they are still being imported into Nigeria. The question we'll be asking ourselves is, why is the US talking about it now? Why was it not talked about before? If you look at this data, you will realize that the major country that should be complaining are not even complaining. And I guess the reason they were not complaining is because people are still importing goods from this country into Nigeria. Into Nigeria from these countries. I guess this is a strategy by Trump and his Minister of Trade to get Nigeria to negotiate. My suspicion. My suspicion. It's a strategy to get Nigeria to negotiate. Why? Because Nigeria is giving 14%. Other countries in Nigerian category in terms of trade are giving how many percent? 10%. So Nigeria can complain and then ask question. Why are you giving us higher tariff? We would like to negotiate. For those working on Facebook and other platforms apart from YouTube, you might want to go to YouTube to get the full video. Now, this is interesting for me. It's interesting because I'm just curious as to why is it that US is bringing up this issue now? Why was this not brought up before? Why is this dominating the trade space and people asking this question at this time? Why was this question not asked before? My suspicion is that this is supposed to be a negotiation tactics for Trump. Increase Nigeria 14%, let Nigeria negotiate, and tell them to put some exemption on those. And US is particular. If you look at that news, let me check one of the news. US is particular about some products that they believe. He said the office of the United States Representative has noted a ban particularly on agriculture, on pharmaceutical, on beverages, on consumer goods that they negatively impact US trade. Negatively impact US trade. Searching for this data, I found this 25 items, and the most affected country currently it's not the US. I mean, people already shipping into Nigeria. But United States Representative has expressed strong concern about Nigeria import ban, citing unfair trade practices. Who is exhibiting unfair trade practices? Exhibiting unfair trade practices that US ban, place tariff on everybody, although US raised concern about the fact that, they have been big brother all along, which I think make a lot of sense. But the way they went about it, they should have allowed the negotiation they are doing right now. Anyway, people see what US has done has been unfair also. But I think sometimes when US says it's unfair, it's as far as US is concerned. But US is not looking at the other party. Everybody take care of themselves, because there was a time Rwanda was yanked off AGOA which is now moribund because of Trump unfair trade practices, because these are agreements and laws that U.S. is now breaking. We call that unfair. I think that is unfair also. I'm talking to the based on the U.S. practice now. But the idea is this: everybody will protect themselves. U.S. yank Rwanda off AGOA because AGOA does not want imported clothes and shoes into the country because they want to produce locally. And U.S. felt that is unfair on them. So you won't blame any country that says something is unfair, because as far as they're concerned, it's unfair. The ban affects key U.S. export interests. Agreed, like beef, pork, and poultry, U.S. want to enter Nigeria. Pharmaceuticals, beverages, juice, alcoholic beverages, and consumer goods. Why do you think U.S. is bringing this up now? After U.S. give Nigeria 14% and saying, you want us to reduce your tariff, then remove those bans. It's important to understand that why U.S. is the most vocal about the ban, that any country that exports the prohibited item to Nigeria is also affected. There are other countries, even though U.S. is the most vocal, but other countries are affected. It's important to understand that any nation that exports those product category to Nigeria are also affected. The other countries, rather. And this includes European Union. Similar to US, they export a lot alcoholic, pharmaceutical, and agri to Nigeria. Brazil, major exporter of poultry and other agricultural products. China, drug, pasta, fertilizer, soap, pen, and the like. And India, as far as pharmaceutical is concerned. Nigerian government banned these items since 2016. But it has become a major conversation and bone of contention in Nigeria today, courtesy US. March 26, Nigerian federal government also announced plan to ban solar panel. The US Trade Representative has highlighted negative impact of this ban on the US, stating that they create significant trade barrier and that leads to loss of revenue. Why did Nigeria ban this product? To protect domestic industry. Look at some of those products. Many of them are currently being produced in Nigeria. To control import, to promote local manufacturing, and an attempt to transit to clean energy with the ban to be placed on solar panels. But where I'm going in essence is this. It's important Nigeria is conscious of the fact that this is a strategy on the part of the US to call Nigeria to the negotiation table so that Nigeria can exempt them from the prohibition of these items which are currently banned in Nigeria, because the ban is not recent. The ban has been on for a while. The Minister of Trade needs to understand exactly what is going on and understand the fact that it's a call on the part of Trump to call Nigeria to the negotiation table, and I believe strongly that that is the reason why, even though Nigeria will probably fall in the category of 10% because of trade relations with the US, but US put Nigeria on 14% deliberately to get Nigeria to negotiate and remove them from. It's interesting, the trade space right now. For me, it's very interesting and exciting, really, because it just shows a lot that is happening and how everybody is trying to protect themselves, and the fact that everybody have an agenda. And guess what? Nigeria also needs to have its own agenda, and we must go to the negotiation table with strength to negotiate what we believe is in the best interest of Nigeria. All these items of prohibition are welcome development, and in my opinion, we need to add more to the list in order to ensure that we protect our home industry. All right, thank you very much. This is my contemplation today on this Buaha, on the prohibition of Nigerian products. Prohibition of 25 import products by the Nigerian government. Like I said, it's important we go to the negotiation table with strength and ensure that we do not allow ourselves to be pressured to bring in this product from the US which can have negative impact on also Nigerian economy. US want to protect itself. Nigeria also must work to protect itself. See you in the next video, and bye for now.